How you doing, everyone? I first want to take this time out to thank you for making this channel a success. Thanks for your positive feedback. And with that being said, I'm going to go into the first topic, and that's happiness. But before I get into the first topic, I want to stress to everyone is that none of the information I'm going to share with you is my opinion. These are all facts. And all I ask of you to do is to look at this information. I'm going to post links about everything that I'm going to say in this video, and then you go from there. You make your own educated decision on this. Now, the topic I chose was happiness. The reason why I chose happiness is because I looked at a lot of Terrence's old videos, and everyone seemed to have a different opinion about what happiness was and what it meant to them. And I think that everyone's viewpoint of what they thought happiness was correct. It could be anything from money to having a great relationship to being alive to just being healthy. It could be any one of those things. I agree. But I think that that's a very small aspect into what happiness is in the total. And I think that a lot of y'all should really look at this and ask yourself this question. If I am truly happy, who does my happiness affect? Who benefits from my happiness and who loses? Then you should ask yourself this question: how secure is my happiness? Now, I'm about to give you some statistics to back up why I feel that no one can truly say that they're happy or that their happiness is secure. Now, the definition of happiness is reaching a state of well-being and contentment. There's no way you can be content with 68% of America's population obese or overweight, with 47 million Americans receiving food stamps, with us having a national dropout rate of 30% in high school, most high school students, 30% dropout rate, over 50% in most major cities. 1 out of every 3 teenage girls are impregnated. We've had over 50 million abortions performed in this country since 1973. That's 1.3 million every year. Every 9.5 minutes, someone's infected with HIV. There are over 1 million people currently living in the United States with HIV, in which 14,000 die every year. Every year there are 19 million new STD cases, in which close to 50% of them fall between the ages of 15 and 24. In 2009, America's total incarcerated prison population surpassed 2 million. We make up 5% of the world's total population, but close to 25% of the world's prison population, in which 70% of those inmates are not white. And then they work on a national average for 25 cents a day. Every day, 16,000 children die from hunger-related causes. That's one child every 5 seconds. One child every 5 seconds dies from hunger-related causes. Then if they're lucky enough to live, they then face another problem, which is cheap labor, slave labor, something that you and I benefit from every single day. Close to 80% of the goods that come into this country were contributed to by slave labor, of which 70% of our economy is based off us going out and consuming this cheap labor. Here are some companies that we're loyal to, that we look up to, that we go and shop from. Walmart, Nike, Gap, Apple have been caught using cheap labor. Caught using cheap labor. Now, some of you looking at this video may say, okay, well, that doesn't have nothing to do with me, or that doesn't directly affect me, or that doesn't take the security away from my happiness. Well, here's some numbers that will affect you. Our national debt is close to $14 trillion. If you spent $1 a second, $1 a second, it would take over 32,000 years to reach $1 trillion. $1 a second, 32,000 years to reach $1 trillion. Then if you take into account the unfunded liabilities such as Medicaid A and B and Social Security, in which the government's already came out and stated that Social Security is technically bankrupt because they're paying out more money than they're actually bringing in. Our unfunded liabilities with the national debt then explodes to close to 58 or 65 trillion, depending on what polls and which numbers you look at. Now, if it takes 32,000 years to reach 1 trillion, where are we going to get the other 57 from? The other 60 from? Our unemployment rate right now in this country is between 9.5 and 9.7%. And if you take into account underemployed people, people who have college degrees working at Walmart, or you take people who's given up looking for a job or ran out of benefits, that number then doubles close to 20%. In minority communities, unemployment was already around 16%. Already around 16%. Something should click in everyone's mind when you see the federal government trying to extend unemployment benefits. If they pass the stimulus package, they pass the bailout package, they pass these different job bills, why would they extend unemployment? If our economy was growing and it was getting better, why would they extend it? Obviously, they're extending it because they know that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. They're already projecting that 1 million Americans are going to lose their homes in the last 2 quarters of this year. And then next year, they're projecting anywhere from 3 to 5 million people are going to lose their homes. Now you may be saying to yourself, well, I don't see these problems. Well, for example, California. There are people squatting in their house because they cannot afford to pay both their electricity and their mortgage. So they decide to turn off their electricity in their house, turn off their electricity, just so that they can stay in their house and make their mortgage payments. Since 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, up until now, our dollar's lost close to 100% of its purchasing power. A dollar today, compared to 1913, is worth 4 cents. 4 cents. Now you hear all these mainstream economists and these politicians coming out saying that we're about to have a double dip recession. There's no such thing as a double dip recession in the law of economics. That's just a nice way of saying we're in a depression. Look, take for example here in New York City. They was trying to cut student Metro cards because our government cannot pay its bills. Student Metro cards. Now, how secure is your happiness? How can you look at your children knowing that they're about to face these type of problems? That these problems are not going to go away. They're actually going to get worse. I don't claim to be no professional on the Bible. I consider myself an amateur. But one of the most profound quotes I've ever gotten from that book was, "Find a way to service many, for service to many shall lead to greatness." Is what you're pursuing, or is what you're perceiving as happiness, going to truly lead you to greatness? Is it going to uplift more people than it's going to harm? Or is your pursuit of happiness going to reduce those numbers? Or are they going to accelerate those numbers and continue to make those numbers grow? Now, there is no one-size-fits-all solution to these problems. But the first step is, one, becoming aware of these problems. Two, speaking to your fellow man and sharing ideas with one another. I mean, it's funny living here in New York City. You see people, you say hi to them, they look at you like you got 5 heads. Or they just keep listening to their iPod or their iPhone. I mean, you see people we put human characteristics on non-human things, but we dehumanize people. We look at people like they don't even exist, walk right past them. And they'll line up 3 days to get a new iPhone, 2 days to get a new iPhone, but they won't take 10 minutes out to really understand where our money comes from, how our goods are imported into this country. As I stated earlier, 70% of our economy is based off us consuming goods. Now, if you have people losing their jobs, on unemployment, and all our economic growth is off of us going out and consuming things, what do you think the shape of our economy is going to be? If the federal government is in debt and they're bailing everyone out, who's going to bail them out when they need a bailout? These are questions you need to start posing to yourself. And you need to then ask yourself, how secure is my happiness knowing that we're really facing these problems and that your happiness can be taken away from you at any moment? Those people in middle-class California, they had happiness, or they thought they had happiness. Until the economy pulled the rug right from underneath them, and then they lost that happiness. So, one, you need to first say to yourself, am I truly happy? And then two, you need to say to yourself, well, how secure is this happiness? Now, you can continue to stay inside of the box on these issues, or you can begin to think outside of the box on these issues. The choice is yours.